Hello, new week, new month I suppose, because we're starting with a Joker chart here. Again, all the coloured string for all the post-war recessions above, to be compared with the red one, which is the Great Recession that is still pertaining today, and pertaining away horribly. That Joker chart is based on these Bureau of Labour Statistics releases that come out first Friday of the month. From it I've pulled table A2, employment status of the civilian population by race, sex and age. Just to have a look at black or African Americans. I don't know the difference, as long as they do. And those type of people, when they are men, 20 years and over, and their unemployment rate is marked along the bottom from not long ago up until the present. So it's from August 2010 to August 2011, the unemployment rate for over 21-year-old male black and African Americans, 16, 17, 17, 17, 17, and 17, 17, up to 18% unemployment. That's all part. They're all part of the overall average unemployment, which is around 9%. But specifically, the black or African American unemployment is twice as much as at 18%. Nick wags his finger and says, "Careful." Food stamp use by state, an interactive chart if you want to follow the link. The darker the red, the more the food stamps are used. It's getting to be nearly 50 million now, isn't it? Certainly over 45. Well over 15% of the population of the United States on food stamps. Dark red there is pushing 20% in that particular area. And there are quite a lot of those very dark red bloody areas. Krugman, writing the New York Times, of course, the conscience of a liberal, the austerity economy. Now, I'll let him say, do the dismal economic numbers really reflect the turn to fiscal austerity? ? I keep hearing people say no, because austerity hasn't actually happened yet in America, but they're wrong. And I was kind of thinking this because you can't get actually decent figures on how the budget is going in the United States at the moment. So I presume that in the background that they were still spending big. But this is the Fred chart, and you can't argue with Fred charts for real government consumption expenditure and gross investment. And it's the increasey or decreasey thing. And right up until late 2010, it was all very much on the increasey side. But now it's plunging negative. So I was thinking that the United States was going to try and resist the world recession. But it looks from this as though they're going to not lead it, but they'll be going happily hand in hand with everyone else. Down, 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 because I can see no sector of the United States economy that is going to increase in GDP. So it's going to go down. Yeah. US light vehicle sales. Pull this out because I was reasonably surprised that light vehicle sales is still, it's not on the up and up. Obviously, it's not like it was in the good old days, but it's really not bad. You can see the various colours representing the different years. I split them up in your mind, 2006 to 2008, and then 2009 to 2011. So violet, blue, and then grey are the latest three, because you can't compare to the old days. The old days are gone. But if you start over in January, violet, blue and grey, they're stepping upwards. Same for February, same for March, same for April. There are a couple of anomalies later in the year, but generally light vehicle sales are marginally getting up, but nowhere near like it was in the good old days. Over in Europe, this is quite funny, I suppose. Europe's economy is going from sluggish to near standstill, with the slowest Eurozone quarterly growth since 2009. The ugly Eurozone average is 0.2%. I believe that's quarterly, so you can multiply it by 4 and make the magnificent 0.8% for annual. But let's have a look at who's bringing up that average up. So it's not France, because they're zero at quarterly or annual. Germany 0.1, UK 0.2, Spain 0.2, Czech Republic 0.2, and Italy 0.3. It's Belgium that's really doing quite well, because 0.7 is worth multiplying by 4 to make 2.8. So the next thing is, what, might you ask, is different in Belgium? There's only one thing. Now, okay, it goes on. Right now, Belgium literally does not have a government, and it hasn't had one for 15 months. They're just so... there are two types of population there, French-speaking and Flemish-speaking populations, and they just can't get it together. So they haven't had a government for 15 months. So libertarian types would probably say, well, that's what you get when you don't have a government. They get out of the way, and everything runs much more smoothly. But I think the more accurate angle is that there hasn't been a government there to actually enact austerity. So things are still going along quite nicely with the government spending large. But who knows? And this is just a tweet chart of global engine loses steam. The 4 on the left are the US indicators. New orders down below 50, employment just off 50, export orders down to 50, inventories we can leave, basically saying that those type PMI indicators are on the 50 line and coming from higher up, and they're heading down below. And around the world, down the right there, the UK is down below the 50 mark. Brazil already showing quite a lot of red below the 50 mark, and South Korea below the 50 mark. And generally around the world, most everyone looks similar. Everyone's coming down. And repeat from, as I said yesterday about the European one, just because you go below the 50 line doesn't mean that's a recession. That means just things are heading in the wrong direction. Recessions are slightly different. But if it got down to 45, you'll almost definitely be in a recession. Now, this is a gay thing. Oh, you can't say gay anymore. This is a bright and lively thing. It's the PMI, Purchasing Managers Index for Australia. And they put it in the green and the gold of Australia, because it's normally good, probably. I don't know. Anyway, it's quite good of them. It's quite bright. Manufacturing weakens further in August. Conditions in the manufacturing sector deteriorated further in August, with the seasonally adjusted Australian industry group, PricewaterhouseCoopers, I would think that is, Australian PMI down a slight 0.1 points to 43.3. It remains well below the 50-point level, indicating a further contraction in activity. And everything about it is very grim looking. From the bottom of it, I've pulled this out to show a slight quirkiness in Australia. The PMI 43.3, direction is contracting, rate of change faster, so you've got contracting faster, which is very ugly. But input prices are expanding faster, and they're up at 63.7, very bad news. Average wages 69, expanding faster. So Australia have got a particular economic problem for their treasury to sort out. That's going to be a very tricky one, that. I've thrown this foreign policy link in to the Kingdom of Magical Thinking, which is Saudi Arabia. Widely assumed to be fabulously wealthy welfare state, Saudi Arabia is in fact an economic basket case waiting to happen. If you want to read. I didn't think it was a particularly good article, but it's good to show that you would imagine that countries like Saudi Arabia, with their huge input of money from their output of oil, should be rolling in clover, but they're not. They're just It's what happens when a bunch of idiots run the country. The Economic Times, Pranab Mukherjee, concern over 10% food inflation. Yeah, India haven't sorted their food inflation out, and that will lead to trouble as well. Asia Times, another disposable leader for Japan. Tokyo, with 6 prime ministers in 5 years, it's becoming increasingly clear who the most popular name in Chinese politics is. It's a person called Nobody. In a poll published on Monday by the Yomiuri newspaper, 46% of the public said they supported Nobody, while only 21 favoured the ruling Democratic Party and 23 supported the Liberal Democratic or whoever. I think the Japanese population have got it. Nobody is probably not a bad idea, because all these somebodies that seem to be in charge make a cock of it. Finish with this from the Financial Times. It's about China, just in case we thought that they were going to save the world. They're still Ponziing up there. Here, on an on-the-ground update of a Chinese practice with some Japanese origins. It's what China expert Michael Pettis compared to the Zaitaku, undertaken by Japanese companies in the 1980s on their way up to their boom, stroke bust. Put simply, it involved the firms going on speculative corporate investment binges. Today in China, it is more to do with intercompany lending, firms stepping in where the banks cannot. The Chinese government are trying to slow everything down by telling the banks to slow down their lending, but corporations with healthy balance sheets are swapping their money around between each other. And it's a great big Ponzi scheme that is bound to explode one day. So that's the way to start the week. We'll see what happens for tomorrow. See ya. Bye.